Katrina, I'm really glad you're here. I guess, I have thought about this book a lot lately. I think it's a beautiful book that I bought as soon as it came out. My family has revisited it many times, and I think it's important all the time. But we're about to hear the story about a young boy in Tokyo who's seeking silence in the kind of bustle of regular life. And I think right now, all of our lives are a little upended. We may not be able to go to our special quiet spots. I've been thinking about that, finding the silence in the moment. So that's why we were particularly happy that you could join us as we kind of find silence in new ways or new spaces. And I think the story can help us think about that. So I'll turn it over to you because you're the author of this amazing book.
Cool, thanks, Andy. I love seeing that lamb and thinking about all these outdoor spaces that we are probably missing right now. And it makes me think of the smell of hay. And when I was a little girl, my grandmother was my mom was from North Carolina. And in the summers, we would go to Kernersville, which is where one of the Weir River Farm staff is from, Christy. And I remember the first time that I went to a farm in Kernersville, there were actually lambs being born. So I saw lambs being born, and there was also a cow that could like lick its own nostril, which I found to be very gross and have remembered ever since. So I'm going to now share with you all, let's see, The Sound of Silence. And here we go. So this is the cover of the book. And before we started, I thought I'd also show you guys a picture of me when I was about your age. I was a little bit older than you, and I was much, much, much younger than you were. You were a lot older than I was in this picture. And I want you guys to see if you can figure out which one of these kids is me. So look at them for a second, and look at me too. Now, if you think that I'm the one who's going, ah, with a really excited face on, raise your hand. Okay, yes. And if you think I'm the one with the sort of shy expression, the taller one, raise your hand. You guys are right. I was the shy one, and I read all the time as a kid. I read at the dinner table. I would hide my book underneath the table while we were eating dinner. I read in bed. I read in the shower, which is actually possible. You just have to kind of hold your book like really far away from the water. Don't do this with library books. Please don't do this with library books. But you can read in the shower. And I read all the time. And this book is I have an audience member over there who's laughing at me in the shower. Yes, it's true. This book is from my childhood. It's from stories that I heard of this mythical place, which is where my dad is from. But I didn't know many Japanese people growing up. And so his stories were my connection with Japan. And I can show you what he looked like too. Now you can see over here in this family picture, there is a very serious kid like me. Raise your hand if you think my dad is the serious kid, the one with that kind of serious expression. Okay, and then there's this other very, very goofy kid that has, he has a little, I think he has those glasses that have the nose and the mustache on it. This very goofy kid, raise your hand if you think that my dad is the goofy one. You're right, you got it. He's the goofy one. He's this one in the samurai helmet. My ancestors were samurai. He's this one in his school uniform, which you'll see school uniforms in the book. And one thing that my dad taught me is he taught us meditation, I guess. Like what would happen is very, very early in the morning, before the sun came up, he would wake us up to get us out of bed, and we would always grumble and be really annoyed. And he would drag us outside, and we would sit on cushions outside. Sometimes it was very cold, and sometimes it was wet. So I remember there'd be like a trash bag and then a cushion. And we'd sit there, and he would tell us to listen for the sounds. And we would sit with our eyes closed, and we would try to listen for the sounds. And it was so lovely. And sometimes we would think that it had been forever because it was quite boring. And sometimes we would think only a few minutes had passed. But we're going to try that together. So I want you to kind of get comfortable wherever you are. If you're sitting on a chair, then you can sort of put your feet on the ground so you can feel your feet under you. Or if you're sitting on your bum, I like to cross my legs like that. I'm wearing a jumpsuit as usual. So you can cross your legs like that. And maybe rest your hands on your knees. That's what I like to do. You can rest them up or down, whatever you want. And we're going to close our eyes together. And the cool thing is that all of you are in completely different places. And so the sounds that you hear will be completely different. And I want you to just let your eyes close and listen for the sounds around you. Okay? Breathe in together. I can actually hear my dad outside the door. I hear my son's voice outside the door. And when you hear a sound, that's the sound of wherever you are, you can put a note into the comments in the Facebook, and we can find out what sounds you're hearing in the place that you are. I just heard the lamb. I will take another deep breath. Okay. And I can't see, but I bet that you have all kinds of sounds that you're hearing that are different sounds than anyone else is hearing. And now we're going to read this book called The Sound of Silence. That is a story that my dad told me growing up. The Sound of Silence by me, with the most divine illustrations by Julia Kuo. Little Yosho wiggled with anticipation. 3, 2, 1. He threw open the front door. The sounds of the city came in from every direction. Tokyo was like a symphony hall. And whether you're in a barn or if you're in a city, you can make the sounds of the city. What are some sounds that you hear in a city? Oh yeah, that was a very loud beep. Yeah, a loud beeping. The squealing of brakes, rain. Yeah, you see all the rain in the picture. So throughout this book, there will be sounds. And you can feel free to add your own sounds as I'm reading. And you can just imagine that everyone that's listening, everyone is adding their own sounds to that symphony of sounds that Yosho hears as he moves through this beautiful city. Yosho listened to the sound of his boots squishing and squashing through the puddles and the tiny raindrops pattering on his umbrella. The sound of his giddy giggles made him giggle more. I hear you giggling. That's excellent. Suddenly, Yosho heard the strangest sound, high and then low, squeaky and vibrating. Amazing. It was a koto player, carefully tuning her instrument. Then the koto player played. The notes were twangy and twinkling. They tickled Yosho's ears. When the sound finished, Yosho said, "Sensei, I love sounds, but I have never heard a sound like that." The koto player laughed, and it sounded like the metal bell that swayed in the wind in Mama's garden. "Sensei," Yosho said, "do you have a favorite sound?" "The most beautiful sound," the koto player said, "is the sound of ma, of silence." "Silence?" Yosho asked. But the koto player just smiled a mysterious smile and went back to playing. Yosho bowed to the koto player. Where can I find silence? Yosho wondered as he listened to the thwack of his boots on the pavement. He listened for it during the school day, but there was always, I'm moving this over here. There was always some kid making noise. At recess, the sun came out and Yosho went to the quietest place he knew, the bamboo grove at the edge of the playground. But even there, the bamboo made a tuck sound as the wind banged its stalks together. He closed his eyes and heard the swish, swish, swish of the wind making the leaves talk. It was beautiful, but it wasn't silence. Walking home from school, Yosho listened hard. He could hear the horns of buses and the whoosh of bullet trains. Can you do that one? Whoosh! And the beep, beep, beep of the traffic lights, but no silence. Yosho knew so many different sounds, loud and soft, sudden and soothing, but silence. Where was silence? It wasn't in the dining room, where there was always the sound of chopsticks and slurping and chewing and swallowing. Can you make those sounds? What a noisy family you are. Silence wasn't in the bath, where even his toes made noise and little droplets of water kept dripping off his nose. Drip, drip, drip. That night, Yosho tried to stay up late to catch the silence while his family slept, but his eyes got heavy and then heavier, and then soon the sound of a distant radio became part of his dreams. The next morning, Yosho woke up to his neighbor's dog barking and barking and barking. Can I hear your barking? Ah, there are so many dogs. Oh no, he had missed the silence. Yosho walked to school early. His sisters whizzed by on their way to the park, screeching Yosho's name. Where was silence? Yosho heard the creak of the school gates as he pulled them open. No one was at school yet. He put on his inside shoes and listened as they shuffled on the shiny floor. And now what I want you to do is we're all gonna hum the same note, okay? And when I go like this, we'll stop, okay? So we're all gonna hum together. The classroom, keep humming. The classroom felt different without anyone in it. He sat at his desk by the window and pulled out a book. He loved the story, and as he read, he forgot where he was. Suddenly, in the middle of the page, he heard it. No sounds of footsteps, no people chattering, no radios, no bamboo, no kotos being tuned. In that short moment, Yosho couldn't even hear the sound of his own breath. Everything felt still inside him, peaceful, like the garden after it snowed, like feather-stuffed futons drying in the sun. Silence had been there all along. It had been there between the thumps of his boots when he ran, when the wind stopped for just a moment in the bamboo grove, at the end of his family's meal, when everyone was happy and full, after the water finished draining from his bath, before the koto player's music began, and hovering in the air right after it ended. It was between and underneath every sound, and it had been there all along. Ma, silence. And now, I want to go back to what we did in the very beginning, where we got comfy. And we took a deep breath and we closed our eyes. And I want you to listen again to the soundscapes of wherever you are. But this time, rather than listening for the sounds, I want you to listen for the space between the sounds. I want you to listen for silence. And when you can find it, even the tiniest little moment of it, between voices, between the sound of rain, between the beeping of horns, I want you to just put your hand on your heart. Cool. So you can find silence anytime. You can find it in the most noisy environments, because the truth is that that feeling of silence is inside of you. And I'm so happy that we got to do this together today. And yeah, this was lovely. If you have any questions for me, you can ask them. Andy will tell me if you have questions. And thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for bearing with us as we figured out technology. And thanks to Weir River Farm, where soon, hopefully, you will get to meet those lambs and touch them.
Well, yeah, we appreciate you being here with us virtually on the farm, and for working through this with us and getting everyone going. I think there's a little lag here, but we got people watching and sending things in. So I'll see if there's any questions that come through. I will say, Katrina, I love that, when you asked what people heard, people were sharing things, not just locally here by the farm, but, somebody was sharing from Nairobi, they heard thunder and birds. And somebody was sitting there somewhere else. I think I had muted at that point, but I was hearing the chewing of hay next to me. And so, I think I like that we've been able to gather so many people together for this.
That's so amazing.
It is. I guess, I'm wondering if we'll see if other folks want to write in some questions, but, are there things that we might have missed at first glance? You kind of put a lot of thought into this book. I know there's a real personal touch to it. Are there things in the book that we might not have noticed on the first time through?
Yeah, here, I'll share again. So one of my favorite things is, oops, hold on a sec. I'm just kind of flipping through a bunch of things because there's one thing I really wanted to show you. Oh, I wonder if it's not in this slide deck. Well, this drawing is one of my favorites because it has a connection to another book that I bet most of you know. And Julia, who is the incredible illustrator who created this whole visual world, loves this book a lot. And it's a really, really important book. Does anyone know what book Julia is referencing in this picture? It's this one here with the boy sitting on the bed and looking out the window, the posture of the boy kind of leaning over and looking out the window. And in the book she's referencing, the boy is looking at a really different scene. Does anyone know what it is? Let me see. I'm hoping that if I go the next, it's this. The Snowy Day, which is an incredible, incredible book and a really important book. It's one of the first very widely published books that had an African-American main character. And she loves this book and wanted to reference it. She and I both had the experience of growing up and not seeing our stories or our faces reflected in the books we were reading. And so The Sound of Silence was really important to both of us in that way. That's one thing I really love.
I'm seeing that Alvina and Laura both knew. Came in a little late. They saw it.
Wait a minute, Alvina. Alvina, is this Alvina Ling? I can't see the Facebook, but I believe that this is my editor, who is responsible for bringing this absolutely gorgeous book into the world. And she is the one who believed in the book from the very beginning. She and I went through tons of rewrites of the book and had a really beautiful time creating it. And I feel so, so grateful that I met her. Another thing that I like to do is take a look, because Julia did something really cool. She wrote me when she was finishing the cover art, and she said, send me a picture of you and I'll put you in the crowd scene. So if you all can look around and see if you can figure out which one is me. Which one is me? Okay, yeah, you can just point to it on your screen. This one? The amazing hat. I wish that was me. That's an amazing hat. Which one do you think? Oh, my hair is curly. My hair actually is curly like that. Oh yeah, oh, right. You see this other one with the sunglasses. It doesn't look much like Jonah, my husband, but that one could be me too. Okay, what else do you think? Oh yeah, the one with the knots in her hair. That could be me too, but that's not it either. Okay, I'll give you a hint. You're looking for a little baby that has some ear, like hat with ears. I think it looks a bit like a goat, like a little kind of baby goat hat. And I'm the only one that's looking right at you. This is what I look like when I look at you. Okay, can you find me? Yes, that's me right there. That's me. That's me and Taiga, my son, when he was a baby. He's 5 now. He's a big kid like you guys. Cool.
Luca, who I think we both know, wants to know what you're hearing right now.
What?
What you're hearing, where you are.
I'm hearing the word year. I don't think you're saying the word year.
No, he wants to know what you hear, where you are.
What I hear, where I am. Got it. Okay, let's see. Oh, there's someone hammering. Is it drums? Our neighbor is incredible. He lives, let's see if he's there. That would be so neat. Right across this fence, this is our view in Colombia. Right across those hedges is an amazing family. And the papa plays drums. He plays these big, beautiful drums, and he does these ceremonies in his backyard. And so we often hear drumming. So maybe that was drumming. What about you, Luca? What are you hearing? You hear your mama? And there's so many birds. We have the most gorgeous birds here in Colombia. We have these, there's one called Soledad, which they say it's because it's so beautiful. It always stays alone, and it has this long tail that has like a little tiny little poof on the end, and it's this brilliant bluey green color. We have bright yellow birds. We hear, and there's these water birds with very long legs that make the loudest racket in the morning. We have roosters too. Those guys wake us up.
We have a few of those.
Yeah. Amazing. There is also, these are some really cool, this just happens to be in here. These are some amazing sounds that students have given to me before of their favorite sounds. So you all can do this activity at home. You can think about what your favorite sound is, and then you can name your sound. So you can draw a picture of your sound, because doki doki is the sound of your heart going, the Japanese sound. So you can make up your own. I like this one. Rain falling on the ground. So that's an activity you can do after we're all done with this. So I know we're all looking for fun things to do in this really wild time. Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining us in this wild time.
Yeah. And Luca has reported, by the way, he's hearing Auntie Claire's voice on video and Patrick talking to Daddy.
Oh, nice. Amazing.
Well, thank you, Katrina, for doing this. This is great. I listening to the story and seeing that scene where little Yoshio is sitting in the classroom all alone. I'm actually sitting in our barnyard classroom right now, all alone. And I think it reminded me just how much we miss seeing everybody here and having so many kids here learning and being with us on the farm. And we can't wait for everyone to come back and be with us. But we're glad we can have these special moments together, and we appreciate you making one of those.